new folks that have joined us?
Sure. I'm Deborah Stillman. I'm head of Young Women and Girls for Advance. And as I've just said, like I've been working in the third sector for over 10 years. I have a background in law and human rights. And then I've worked with like women and girls and people in like modern slavery, asylum seekers, but also child in poverty, domestic abuse, and yeah, different in women in the criminal justice system as well in Advance, and also as a prevention model for young women and girls.
Hiya, I'm Lucy Angel John, and I am a domestic abuse trainer. So I've worked in domestic abuse since 2009, and mostly in prevention work with young people. So I've worked with Tender. I'm a freelance facilitator for them at the moment. And I also deliver domestic abuse training in the NHS to healthcare professionals as well.
Cool. I'm Leonie Loftus. I'm the Senior Policy Manager at Advance. I've kind of worked in this area for roughly a decade. And a lot of my focus is the kind of lobbying of government to build legislation and advocate for change on that level.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today and being here. And we'd like to kind of ground the session first to talk about how young people start forming their understanding of relationships. So the first question I'll hand over is, why is adolescence such a critical time for shaping young people's understandings of relationships? Anybody wants to start us off?
I'll say like in my own experience, like I have like this pivotal moment in my life that I remember an advice I got from my big brother. When I was a teenager, I was about 12, 13 years old, and my brother sat me down. He was in his early 20s, and he was talking to me about a friend of his, like a female friend of his, who had been hit by her boyfriend. And he told me that, and they lived together, and I remember he said to me, like, and she walked away, and he left. And I remember I was sitting in a car with my brother, and he said to me, like, I hope that you know that if a man ever raises his hand to you, you have to walk away. You don't stay, you don't give another chance. And I remember it so clearly, and he was telling me like, and you call me, and if you need help, you ever call me. And it's just like, and now working with young girls who are developing that understanding themselves, and I think like for me, it was always so clear to me that I was like, that I would never have to live with that situation, that I was just like, I understand that I don't have to go through that I don't deserve to be treated that way because someone taught me that I deserve better than that. And I think, and for us, it's just like, it's very clearly just teaching like those boundaries, like what you deserve in a relationship. You deserve to be treated with love, with respect, and very clearly forming in a young person that learning that they can carry through their lives is like very clearly from an engaged, having those boundaries, those understanding about consent, that you can say no, but you just, well, I see like so many girls who feel like into that trap of peer pressure as well about having that first sexual relationship. If all my friends are having sex, why am I not having sex? I have to do it because everyone else is doing it. And we're just like, no, you don't have to do it. And they're like, oh, and that clicks when we have to say to them like, you don't have to do it because all your friends are doing it if you're not comfortable. And you also can stop at any moment. Oh, yeah, I can say no at any point. Yes, you absolutely can say no at any point, but if you don't have in that teaching, you don't have those conversations, you don't have those spaces where you allow for those conversations to happen in a real, true level, it's like, how do they learn? It's just like, oh, they're going to go online and someone else is going to be telling them, like ChatGPT will tell them like something else they're not meant to be learning at that age. So it's about like having those spaces for those real conversations and teaching them about like the importance of saying no and what do they deserve as a person.
Yeah, and I think you maybe said this earlier, but we know that 16 to 25-year-olds are the age group who are most likely to experience domestic abuse, and that's why it's so important to talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships before people enter that age range, so they're aware, like you say, that they can walk away, that they can go to people for support. That's one of the main things when I do Tender workshops. It's, yes, what's a healthy relationship and what's an unhealthy relationship, but also you can talk about relationships with adults, with teachers, with your parents if you feel able to, if anything's making you feel worried. And I think it's just making that really clear to people that they can go to people for support if they need to. and also really using the resources available to that age group of school and college and university. And that's why it's so great that lots of charities are doing workshops in schools, because we've got an opportune moment to talk to everybody in education about this. You know, once everybody's an adult and in the world, then ChatGPT and Instagram is where they're getting their information. So that's why it's really good that the new Vogue strategy includes so much funding for prevention programs in schools.
Setting that scene for foundational education there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come from a more kind of policy data point of view, because you've made the point so well, but I think it's just important to understand that when you are looking at the data for 16 to 25-year-olds, it's because teenagers legally cannot be victims of domestic abuse in intimate partner relationships. They can be if they're experiencing domestic abuse in their own homes when it's their parents, but the interpersonal violence in their relationships. But what we do know is that 11-year-olds are having boyfriends and girlfriends. You know, we do know that, and they are learning online in their own homes with their friends what relationships look like, and that can really, you know, that age group is framing very quickly, you know, from quite short interactions with whether it's online or in person, what relationships should and shouldn't be, and what power is in a relationship, and it is important to kind of gather that data to see where what's happening with that age group under 16, because I think there are concerns about, you know, there's concerns around peer and peer violence, but peer and peer violence can be bullying, but it could also be domestic abuse, and we're not necessarily understanding those trends. Yeah.